Hello everyone, good afternoon. So for today, I will be having the week 7 synchronous session for Psi 111 or Theories of Personality 1. So it's already recording. Let us begin our session. So you can see here in module 2, we are already done with week 6. And I want you to answer this week 7 quiz here. After that, you can answer this M2 formative assessment 1 by Sir Said. So you can see here the lecture videos for all of the coverage or theories that will be covered for TOP 1 in module 2. So we have object relations theory, then we have psychosocial theory by Erik Erikson. We also have psychoanalytic social theory, and we also have humanistic psychoanalysis by Eric Fromm. Okay, so I hope that you will be answering all of the assessments, and you can check the recording in our MS Teams. So kindly go with the teams we have. Let's check your MS Teams. I am consistently posting all of the sync sessions or the YouTube sync sessions for the theories that we have covered or we have discussed. Okay, so for this week 7, we have to discuss the theory of Karen Horney. So I will be focusing the theory of Karen Horney. If you can hear me, I hope I am audible to each one of you. So let's discuss psychoanalytic social theory by Karen Horney. According to Horney, everyone is a real or potential competitor of everyone else. So what does it mean? Just a short biography later, no? It means that in our society, we are guarded by competition to each other. Might it be in resources or might it be on personal competition to each one of us, which drive our behavior and our personality as we grow up. Short biography of Horney. She is born in Elbeek. She's the youngest of 2 children, born to an older sea captain and his young wife. She entered the University of Freiburg. She worked with neurotics. She published the technique of psychoanalytic therapy in 1917. Horney left Germany to become an associate director of Chicago Psychoanalytic Institute and increasingly abandoned psychoanalysis in a favor of a more socially oriented theory. And she founded her own clinic and died in New York in 1952. So let's go to the basic assumption of the psychoanalytic social theory. So one basic assumption is the social and cultural conditions, not only childhood experiences, are largely responsible for shaping behavior. So she said, or her main concept of her theory mentioned that it's not only the childhood or past experiences, but also the social and cultural expectations of individuals why they turn to be in that personality or why they turn to behave that way. Horney believed that the nutritive soil of neurosis is basic anxiety that we may develop over time. So, tayo dong lahat, no? We have basic anxiety. So, Horney also hypothesized that a difficult childhood is primarily responsible for the different neurotic needs we have. So, once you have a difficult childhood experiences, then of course that will affect also your personality, and you can become or you will tend to develop neurotic needs. So, what is basic hostility? When people who do not have their needs for love and affection satisfied during childhood, they might develop basic hostility towards their parents. The first reaction to parental indifference is anger, which is represented by basic hostility, and as a consequence, they suffer from basic anxiety. So after basic hostility, they feel that their love, that their need for love and affection was not met, so they might react in an angrily manner. So they do experience basic hostility, and after basic hostility, as a consequence, they will suffer basic anxiety. So what is basic anxiety? So basic anxiety is a result from basic hostility. So it's a fear of helplessness and abandonment. So it's a feeling of being isolated and helpless in a world conceived as potentially hostile. So that is basic anxiety. From time to time, we might experience basic anxiety, and people can combat basic anxiety by adopting one of the three fundamental styles of how they can relate to others. They might move away, they might move towards, or they might move against people. For normal individuals, they tend to move away from other people. I mean, they tend to use any of these modes of relating to people. So they can shift, they can vary dependent on the situation. And for the neurotic individuals, they are compelled to rigidly rely only into one mode, okay, or style of relating to others. Now let's go to protective devices. So defenses against basic anxiety, it be real or imagined hostility. This is the version of Horney'S defense mechanisms. Diba kay Freud we have defense mechanisms, Adler we have safeguarding tendencies, and for Horney, she have protective devices. So we have power, prestige, and possession. So either to dominate, to protect against humiliation, and buffer against destitution and poverty. They might want to assert their power, prestige, or own things or material wealth. Another protective devices are affection. Affection is when people try to purchase love with self-effacing compliance or material goods. So basically, they could purchase love. Like love has a price. Okay? Now we have withdrawal. So when people develop an independence from others or by becoming emotionally detached from them, so people might sometimes withdraw from the society or from their world. Sometimes they don't began to talk to other people, and hence they will withdraw and detach for them not to experience this basic anxiety. Submissiveness is when they already try to submit themselves to people or institutions. It might be in religion, or it might be on organizations or other people as well. So it's a form of moving towards. You can say that withdrawal is a form of moving away from people, and affection is a form of moving towards, and power, prestige, possession is a form of moving against, partly. So now let's move forward to compulsive drive. So when neurotic people have the same problem which affects normal people, except that they experience it on a greater degree. So again, for normal individuals, they can experience anxiety, but for neurotic ones, they can experience it in a greater extent or level. Normal people use a variety of defense mechanisms or maneuvers in a useful way, while neurotic people compulsively repeat only the same strategy in an unproductive manner. So take note. So we have the following defenses: the ways of how people can relate to others, moving towards people, they can become friendly, having loving personality, but a neurotic defense could be a very compliant person. Okay? Kahit na utu-utu na siya. Moving against people is seen as someone who is a survivor in a competitive society. That is for the normal. And for the neurotic, moving against can be having an aggressive personality. Moving away from people in a normal extent could be someone who is autonomous, having a serene personality, and for a neurotic defense, it could mean having a detached personality. So we have different categories of neurotic needs. So we have for moving towards, for affection and approval, for a powerful partner, to restrict one's life narrow borders, and for power. For moving against, we have the following defenses: to exploit others, for social recognition or prestige, for personal admiration, and for ambition. And for moving away, it could either be for self-sufficiency and independence, and for perfection and prestige. So take note of these categories of neurotic needs. All right? So in your book, the Book of Vice, you could see here the summary of the neurotic needs and where are they classified. Okay? Kung anong trend siya. Now let's go to another concept of Horney known as the intrapsychic conflict. It's recording. just to make sure. Intrapsychic conflict originate from interpersonal experiences. So it can become part of a person's belief system that they develop a life of their own, an existence separate from their interpersonal conflicts that gave them life. So take note of that one. It again originates from interpersonal experiences. It can become part of a person's belief system and may develop a life of their own. So sometimes our conflicts inside of us might have their own power, which can either dominate us at some point. So we have different intrapsychic conflicts. We have the idealized self-image. This is the feeling of being alienated from themselves when people need desperately to acquire a stable sense of identity. Somehow it's a painting a godlike picture of themselves, like a delusion of grandeur. Let's say we have examples or other forms of idealized self-image, the neurotic search for glory. So it's like tyranny of the should. So dapat ganito ako, dapat maganda ako, dapat perfect ako. So it's a comprehensive drive towards the actualizing the ideal self. Three elements: the need for perfection, neurotic ambition, and drive towards a vindictive triumph. Ito yung parang hamakin ko yung lahat, makamit ka lamang. Okay? So another form we have is the neurotic claims. So for people, in their search for glory, neurotics build a fantasy world that is out of sync with the real world. So they proclaim that they are special and therefore entitled to be treated in accordance to their idealized self-image. So that is for neurotic claims. For neurotic pride, it is a false pride that is based not on a realistic view of the true self, but on a spurious image of the idealized self. So it's not really true, but it's somehow you're portraying somewhat like you're like this or like that. It's a false pride. Another form of intrapsychic conflict, again, these are internal conflicts. We have self-hatred. Self-hatred is when you began to despise yourself, and this is irrational and very powerful tendency to despise oneself. So when neurotics realize that their real self does not match on the insatiable demands of their idealized self, then they will begin to hate and despise themselves. So basically, there are ways on how people can express their self-hatred. One is relentless demands of the self, like dapat ganito ako, dapat ganyan. Next is merciless self-accusation. So, for merciless self-accusation, they always blame themselves. Like kahit hindi naman sila yung may kasalanan, pero they always blame it to them. Okay? So another way is we have self-contempt. So ito naman, you began to ridicule, you doubt your own abilities, hindi na doubt mo yung mga abilities mo, yung capabilities mo, yung kaya mong gawin. Self-frustration, ito naman yung parang feeling ko hindi ko deserve, ganyan. Hindi ko deserve mentality. Hindi ko deserve mag-travel, hindi ko deserve bumili ng ganyan. Okay, that is self-frustration. Self-torment or self-torture, ito naman yung parang somewhat pinapahirapan mo yung sarili mo. Let's say, nagpapabugbog ka sa ibang tao, ganyan. So, inaalaw mo yung physical or yung self mo talaga na mahirapan. That is self-torment or self-torture. And self-destructive actions and impulses, ito naman yung mga suicidal ideation, naglalaslas, no? Yung mga bagay na sinisira mo yung sarili mo or mga behaviors na somewhat you're trying to allow yourself to hurt yourself. Ganon. So, since social and cultural expectations, siya rin yung forerunner ng feminine psychology because psychological differences between men and women are not the result of anatomy but rather because of culture and social expectation. So she also insisted that basic anxiety is at the core of men's need to subjugate women and women's wish to humiliate men. So it's not really the anatomy for Horney, but because of yun nga, societal expectations, because of culture, how they view women and men differently. And some applications of psychoanalytic social theory. The psychotherapy focused on the development of self-realization through self-analysis, and it utilizes some techniques of Freud, successful when patients can already assume responsibility for their psychological development. Hence, the goal of Horneian therapy is to help patients gradually grow in the direction of self-realization and to give up their idealized self-image and relinquish their neurotic search for glory, and to change self-hatred to self-acceptance. Focus on love, mastery, and freedom. So, those are some goals of the Horneian therapy. Okay? So, I hope you've learned something in the discussion, and that is for our lesson for today. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week again for another lecture discussion. So again, answer formative assessments for week 7, view all of the modules in advance, and read your book of FICE. That will be all. Thank you very much.